We've been using this design to test a relatively new concept. We want to use this eventually as a template. And if you look on the right-hand side over here, we've gathered together a series of different plant symbols, but they're already tied or tagged to an entry in the accompanying plant database file. You can see it's the standard gCAD one down here. Whenever we pick on one of these symbols, it is already appropriately labelled. So I've just been testing things out, dragging symbols from what is essentially a palette on the right and putting them on in the zone on the left. The drawing doesn't mean very much, it's just a way of testing. But as we're doing it, we come across some interesting developments with gCADPlus, or ways to work with gCADPlus. Here's a swimming pool, and you'll notice that there's, and if we look down here, it's had a gradient fill applied to it. And what you can do with a gradient fill, you can nominate a start colour. If you look down here, it's 74, 160, 193 for the red, green and blue combination values, and we've got an end colour, just colour 152. So we get a lighter area in the centre. But if it was a pool, it'd probably be shallower at this right-hand end where the entrance to the pool is. So we might want to shift that along in the X direction, which is to the right. So if we come down here, we can change the point offset in the X direction. Let's make it 75, and you should see that white area shift to the right, and it does, so indicating a shallower zone up here and a deeper zone to the left. The other thing I noticed as we were developing the design, there's going to be a low masonry wall through here, and if I look here, that is a hatch pattern called rubble, and I want to have the same slightly higher wall through here. And if I say draw hatch, I've picked rubble, I'll just drop out of there and just select the previous one, and it's a scale of 1000. So if I say draw hatch and pick the entity, that's this new one here, looks to be fine, and I hit enter now, and we say OK. The drawing is unable to place that level of density, so we need to put in our 1000, and we try that, but nothing happens. And the reason nothing happens is that although this is a polyline, it's not actually closed. You need to close the polyline for it to work. I can do that very easily in the properties box. And let's repeat the hatch. We've still got our scale at 1000. Select the entity and hit there and OK. And in goes the hatching, and I can simply modify, pick up the properties of this one and move it here. Now I use match properties a lot, so I'd suggest that adding match properties to the custom toolbar would be a very good idea. And we can do that by View, Toolbars, and switch to the custom toolbar. And what we want to do is add things to the custom toolbar, and we're after the match properties. And here we are. Throw it across and OK. Now on the toolbar I can match properties really quickly and really easily. And when we save this session, it should be available in the next session. I'm not at all sure why I get a better hatch pattern here versus that one, but I could certainly live with it. If I want to put that same hatch pattern and to indicate a low wall around this area, it's going to be fairly tedious to do that, and I wanted to show you in a moment how you can do that to find that area very easily. But this is not my particular, not my drawing. I didn't start it from scratch. But I noticed as I come in here and we select, that's a polyline that runs right through here. And I think that's a polyline, not with this number of vertices in it, but I think it's probably been done with an arc, and then the arc has been exploded. But clearly we don't want to have that, so we'll delete it. Now I've left you with a polyline where I've used the arc option, and if I use the arc option, it does mean that I can join a polyline, and I came upon this problem because that previous one with all those vertices in it, I couldn't join them. But we can indicate that area and hatch it very quickly just by using a small trick. So it's draw, hatch, we've got the same rubble wall. Rather than select the entity, we'll pick a point and click inside here. Can you see gCADPlus radiates out really, really quickly? It creates its own polyline entity, and that's something that can be very easily hatched. We've got our scale correct, the entity, and we can OK it. And bingo, there's our hatch pattern that goes in. So if you're going to do these shapes like so, I would advise, I'll just put a line here, make sure you practice just a little with draw a polyline. I'll start at the end of a straight line, and I can make shapes that roughly like these curves by simply doing relatively short line segments like so and curve around. So we've done a relatively complex shape and the vertices are all in there. That's a single polyline with the vertices in place, and it's done with the option of the polyline. If we repeated that and went from here and then right click and said no, we'll start with a line, and then we'll right click and come with an arc, and then right click and go with a line and head off in that direction, and then another arc, we come back here and then with a line. I hope you can see that the polyline command is really, really powerful. So it's one polyline with those vertices you see there. So it's very easy to control the shape. You can even add vertices by right-clicking and insert a vertex and then do some tweaking. But that vertex then went in on the arc option of the polyline. I'm not sure whether if we undo, that will go out, and it did, so that's good. So we should have inserted let's try it again, insert a vertex there, and that's gone in on this straight side. So it depends the entity and positioning as you're playing with little tricks such as that. So our drawing is progressing. There's still quite a lot more testing to do with it, but we are moving along. Well, you may remember that I was puzzled by the poor performance of that hatch in that little area through here. So I copied the hatch down, and let's now eliminate it, and let's run the hatch command again, and we picked the entity. This time it's a closed polyline, and we hit enter. 1000 is correct, do that, and in goes the hatch pattern. And notice if we compare the two, there's some missing bits in this one. And the reason what happened was that the match properties command failed to do, it did a job, but not quite as well as it should. So it's colour 215,194. So if we just change, don't use match properties, we just change the colour to 215,194, and we do that, and I hope you can see that looks fine. That's a proper hatch pattern. So I'll get rid of the one that was created using our match properties. So our match properties command needs a little bit of help, but I think you'll find it very useful for most things. Quite how we program our way around that little glitch, I'm not sure. But if you're aware of it, just change the colour rather than just match the properties.